Hello. What a beautiful day it is today. The sun is shining and there's a breeze. I love going outside when there's a breeze and the sun is it's nice and warm, but the cool breeze keeps you from getting too hot. I love that. I wish I could stay like that all the time. Um, there's so many pleasures that we get, just from things that are around us. Just I get so much pleasure, as you know, from my animals, but just the little things, that actually are soothing and nice, like a cool breeze on a sunny day, or even a rain shower. That's kind of nice too. I used to live in Arizona, and the whole sky would split. It didn't rain there. It was like torrents. All of a sudden, everything's fine, and then the next minute, that you're having a flash flood and cars are floating down the street. I'm sure you know those that are in Arizona. But that was an interesting time of my life. It was hot, really hot. And I started to work for Intel while I was there through a temp agency. I'd been going to Adelphi Business College, and I was hired by a company before I even finished. I was, just snatched right up, which was nice. And then eventually after that, I was taken, into Intel Corporation, which was a very pivotal time, with the account. I was in the accounting department, did lots of things for them. They eventually moved accounting up to Oregon, so I had that experience to be transferred to Oregon and work in Hillsboro. And so I had some really pivotal career things that did happen for me as I went along, and was having children, and there were, as life always goes, there's always going to be challenges. Sometimes they're just so big you don't even understand why you're having to go through certain things that are just whoa. And maybe it's easy for some people, but I think everybody has one or two like really pivotal things that happens to them in their life that they have to navigate through, that brings out the worst in you, because you're battling uphill, and it's really hard to be happy and positive all the time when the world is beating you down in really profound ways. What I had to deal with was very profound. And but I learned a lot, and I went back to college. I took some classes at the community college while I was in Hillsboro, and I did a lot of research over one of the trials that I was going through that I probably won't mention right on this one. It'll probably come up in the future, but it was a real serious situation. Seems like I don't know what that's all about. But anyway, I got to go to Dornbecker's Hospital and do a lot of research on this particular situation, and was able to write, a paper for my class. I was in a research class, and I love doing research papers. I love doing the outlines, and I mean, I got good at that. So I don't know. I don't really have writer's block. I think I just have trauma block, that I'm just alchemizing. I mean, if you've listened to me, you know what's happened and everything. You know that I've been the great misunderstanding. Call me misunderstanding. That people don't really actually know who I am. They just make assumptions, right? Because of what, opportunities, whatever. And people can do that. They just, they get an idea in their head, and they judge you based on maybe what you've gone through, instead of, who you are and how you actually dealt with that. You know what I mean? How you got through it, and how you grew from it. And sometimes it was rough, and other times, it's hard, but it takes when you get older, you realize that you've picked up all these different lessons that you've had to learn along the way, and some of them are hard, and it just depends on where you've started. I had a bishop in the LDS church who I really loved. He was amazing. He man in Oregon, and he described it like it's like on a racetrack. You know, how the racetrack goes, and each person, each runner starts at a different spot. So depending on where you're born and what situation that you're born into decides on what your position is. Like, it might seem like somebody's ahead because they're born like maybe with a silver spoon in their mouth, but somebody else is like thrown into a family or adopted, and into a very hard situation. So you notice on the track how each starting point seems different, right? And so it looks like, okay, she always gets what she wants, which I guarantee you that has never, ever been true for me. Nothing has ever once come easy, okay? So let's just erase that. Anyway, so let's say that everybody perceives that on this racetrack of runners, that I'm on the first line, and then everybody else is staggered behind me. And so everybody has this perception, oh, she's ahead, she's got an advantage, right? But the lesson that he was trying to teach me, even then, is that, we don't have any control about where we're born and who raises us or what happens to us in those, very vulnerable little years when we're young, right? And so we don't have any say-so. And so he was describing this as children being born into different situations, but the length of the track, which you can't see that, you're just making this perception that somebody's starting ahead of you. But really they're not, because the track is the same amount of, it's the same length. So anyway, you could come in there first, and the person that started first will come in behind you if they're not faster. It still works out. It still levels out where everybody's running the same level of track. And so you have to decide, so you can't let perception, mess you up when you're thinking that somebody's ahead when they're absolutely not ahead. and that the track of life is the same length, pretty much. I mean, we don't all die at the same time, and I don't know how all that works out, but I really understood that. So he was also, and I really understood this too. So if you've got somebody that is spiritually or emotionally stunted, but they make this great big leap emotionally, like they have grown like crazy. And maybe it's still not the same as maybe somebody over here that was born into a better situation, that was trained better from the start. However, the growth span was maybe more tremendous than the growth of the person that had it easy. You know what I'm saying? I mean, do you understand what I mean? So it isn't really, even though somebody might be ahead of you as far as educationally and all that, they might not have had the spurt of growth in a short period of time or in a certain length on that track. Somebody might have gone super fast and really caught up, really educated themselves and caught up quick, right? But they may not still be, where their peers are just yet. And maybe they are, But we have decisions that we can make, and how we want to grow ourselves. I think we innately know inside of ourselves where our strengths lie, and that we would focus and work on those. And that no matter when you're born or where you're born to, no matter where you start on that track, it's just a perception that somebody's ahead or behind, because the length is the same, but the way you run it, that counts, right? How you've trained to run that track, it does matter. And so perception is a really big deal. You perceive things, oh, well, it's not fair because she's this, that, and the other, Believe me, during this whole process, I've been seen without any makeup on and really, looking my worst. And so I don't look like this all the time. I'm doing a video. So I'm just as vulnerable as anybody else. But I've had a situation in my life where there's so many people that just want to step on all over you, that finally you just kind of sit back and just, you stop caring. You don't really care what they're doing and it doesn't affect you anymore because you already know what they're like, and that's too bad. I mean, I don't mean to sound judgmental, but a lot of people, it really is. We have structured our society for chasing money, so much so that we forget what's really important, in that there's some personal skills, because you can't work in any job or corporation or organization without having some level of emotional intelligence to be able to function successfully. And with the team structure most companies have, and you have to work together. You can't have all this disarray. Everybody's got to somehow want to make something fruitful and go forward. You can't just, go in there and just start attacking each other because of your perceptions and not the facts. You didn't get the facts. And so, that's another thing. It's really important that that you do, and that's me. I try to sit back and really observe my surroundings. Before I say anything, I like to try to get a little bit of the facts. I try to glean a little understanding for what's going on in my world and why, what I'm responsible for, how I can make it better or worse, or how I can just fight for myself. Sometimes you just got to plain be a warrior and fight for yourself. You can't just, I'm not a willing participant in letting somebody walk all over me. I'm not, believe me. But I'm not going to go out there like an idiot. I wanted to do, I'm trying to make a really difficult situation that I'm going through right now. I'm sure everybody has something, but about what mine was incredibly unfair. I mean, half the time it was happening, I didn't know. I'm just singing and having a great time and just, being happy. Not harming or doing anything to anyone else, not being toxic. I was still high vibrational even back then. I wasn't low vibrational. Maybe, I think my feelings got hurt a lot easier back then. And now, they ruined all that. I mean, I really don't care. So it's like, I doubt, that it'll ever be to where I can give somebody that much power over me ever again. Even, you know what I mean? Because if your family can do that to you, then who else is going to hurt you that much? Like nobody. They could try, but it's never going to be that much. So if you can get through disappointments with the people that you had been the closest to, and they have really abused you, and you have to step away from them, it's almost like the sky's the limit. If finally you're emancipated, you're free from oppression. You're free from all that. That really matters to me. It really does. To just be able to take whatever false perceptions that anybody had for me. And the funny thing about it is that a lot of these people actually did know me. They just wanted to paint me in this picture because, I've told you before, I was supposed to die. I had, was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer, but here I am. I'm still going. And it's almost like as if I'm being blamed for not dying because they had a plan to take money. And so I'm being blamed for not having died. And can you imagine having people that should have loved you want you to die so they can steal from you? Not even thinking that I have children that would be able to have, my resources, right? No, they stole it from them too. So it was kind of it was, a premeditated plan. And so if you can get through where the people that you counted on the most are the most confused and wicked, and really believe me, they're not apologetic. They're not. They would do it all over again. So, and their reasons are very weak. I know for a fact that if the tables were turned, I would have handled it so very differently. Very differently. It wouldn't even occur to me to break the law or to steal or to forge names. I just things like that, it doesn't even cross my mind. I never, it's just not like that. No. I respected the people I worked for. They clearly didn't respect me, but I respected them. I respected my job. I loved my jobs. I was a good employee. There was no way that that I would do some of the crazy things that I've been accused of. There's just no way in the world I would even conceive of it. So obviously I'm having a lot more fun than I really actually am. A few years back, no, I guess it's been 2 years. I don't know if you can see it. But I fell for a second time, actually, on this broken piece of tile at the place that I lived. And I told her about this hole. And it wasn't a big hole, but it was big enough that if you're running out the door and there's that hole and you step in it, you're going to fall, right? And that's what happened. I came out the door, stepped in the hole, and fell. But the second time I did it, I fell so hard on this shoulder that I crushed it. Literally crushed it. You know, and I went to the ER and they put it in a sling. But the surgeon that I needed to see didn't have an opening for a week. So my shoulder was sloshing around in this brace waiting for a surgery. And it was completely, crushed. My arm was not in the socket. It was, I was on a really heavy duty painkillers at that time, as you can guess. I couldn't go to the bathroom without help, get in the shower without help. At first I couldn't prepare food. I was just so heavily sedated. And so to learn that, people had been telling everyone that I was a prostitute and traveling around and I was soliciting people for sex is just, and I don't know, can you say that word on I hope so. I don't know, I'm just stating the facts. But when you think about that, how, inhumane. And they knew, I'd called family, I told them what happened, But that even leads me back to the situation even before I crushed my shoulder. Exactly a year before that. It was the COVID thing was almost completely over, right? I had made it through without getting it. It was great. Then I move into this place, get some people to come over there and help me move some things in. I moved my furniture in the basement. And so somehow I get COVID. And I wind up in the hospital for like 10 days. Everybody knew. I told people that I had it. And they did put me in ICU. They were going to put me on the machine and a feeding tube, but I was eating fine. And I just said, well, I'm eating fine. I don't really need to be on a feeding tube, And, I did get the medicine that did affect my kidneys, and I did work through that. And you have strange smells and strange tastes and weird things that happen when you're recovering. But it was, for me, it was almost deadly, especially at first. And it was my son that, I'd already been to the ER like a couple of times, but the second time he took me and they kept me there because my blood pressure was really, really low. And I couldn't stop coughing. It was just terrible. And so, but push come to shove, I was put in ICU, and it was all of a sudden treated even more seriously than I felt like it needed to be, like I didn't need to be on a feeding tube. And so it really scared me because right then there was a lot of deaths with the ventilators. And that, I just had this insight, get up and start walking. Just get up out of the bed. And I did have IV in, so I just got up and I started walking, pacing back and forth. And the doctor came in and I said, I have no plans of dying today. And so I did that, and I wouldn't let them put me on a feeding tube. And so they kicked me out of ICU and put me in a room like a million miles away from a nursing staff. I was still deathly ill. I was still very sick. But instead of putting me near a nurse's station, they just threw me in a room and nobody was around. And when I came to, I had been given medication. When I came to, there was no nurse around me, nothing at all. They just literally, And it was like, I was crying. It's like, they just abandoned me in this room, on a whole different hallway, not anywhere near the nurses. I was still getting regular medications, I thought, but it was really traumatic. I was really upset with the way the hospital handled my case. I was to tears. I was upset, and I talked to a social worker the next day. But when you think about what I had gone through after the death of my employer and all the moves I had to make, and then finally settling a little bit, and then getting COVID, a year later crushing my shoulder, there was virtually no time for me to do some tricks, if you know what I mean. There was no time. Of course not. No. Why would anybody even, it's just really silly, right? And this putting cameras in my room business, that's a huge crime. I'm here to tell you, it's a big one. That one is not okay. Nope, not even for a minute. All right. Each of us have constitutional rights, this right to privacy. We do. And these people completely broke all of the rules, completely stripped me of all of that. But, and now that the law is involved and I'm being, now they're calling it protection, which is, yes, I believe that's true now. But back then, that wasn't protection. They were trying to get anything that they could do to construe and fabricate in a court situation so they could steal something from me. My ex put his own address on my court papers, and so everything would just come to him, not to me. So I can't even begin this and then and I realize I still want to come in and have a bright, smiling face. But if I was to come in here and act like everything was just totally perfect and that I had never gone through these things and all of these, getting COVID and hurting myself, and before that I'd been in an accident, I had broken my wrist in 5 places, and I just had gone through so many things, in that 3-year period of time, and all during that time they're saying that I'm soliciting like a prostitute. How? How can you make that work? I mean, I have a really great reconstruction from breast cancer, but they're reconstructed and I have scars. I'm not going to want to, and some people knew that I was very insecure about that. And so they completely turned this whole thing around to try to make me feel more insecure about that. Some really, really evil people jumped in on that scene to really do as much harm as they could possibly do and paint me as a person that I'm absolutely not. Just because I'm not living in a religious way, like going to church every Sunday. Well, I couldn't drive my truck for one thing at that time. I was having problems with the registration because of my dad's name being on that and trying to get that worked out. But I did work it out before they, came around and took the truck, a year later through some very deceitful means. That shouldn't have happened. They did it on purpose. So I'm just, I've really been put through a lot here. And, and I know that they want to say that it's all for my good, that makes me stronger. And sure, but when you consider, okay, they want to make me stronger without having known all the stuff throughout my life that I've had to deal with. And they think that I need to be stronger. Well, excuse me. You don't know who you're talking to. I'm a pretty tough girl. Just because, I'm kind and I'm humble because I've had to deal with so many things doesn't make me like a pushover. You know what I mean? I'm still going to fight for myself. When it was done behind my back and I didn't know, I couldn't fight for myself. I just didn't know. And I expected better behavior from religious people. I expected at least half decent behavior from my siblings, but no. So, I'm grateful. I am so grateful to have been enlightened about the people that are around me. I really do appreciate that very much. I do. And you know what else is really cool about this? I think is really fascinating. I knew all my life that I had these gifts where I, had visits and could actually communicate with people that passed away. I've known that for a long, long time. And and I remember even telling siblings, I could, what happened and that I had these experiences. Or that, maybe I shouldn't even tell you. I don't want anybody to know what I can do. Anyway, but I knew that I had these gifts. And so, oh gosh, I lost my point there for a second. Anyway. Oh, I know. The fact that I had these gifts. I mean, I never listened to tarot, or I mean, I didn't personally do tarot. I once had a friend that did the oracle cards, the angel cards, and I was very skeptical about that, and I was all indoctrinated how evil it was. I mean, I was really indoctrinated how evil it was, and still, I get that, from the Christian community that it's an evil practice. But I want to applaud some of these amazing readers, these amazing tarot readers that are high energy. They're high energy, so they have a high vibration. They care about the truth. They care about their connection to their spirit source, whether it be an ancestor or praying to Heavenly Father. I congratulate them because they're very pivotal in helping to solve some serious crime. And I salute you. I really actually, no matter what they say, I want you to know that I am very appreciative in a very sincere and deep way for the work that you've done that was done in integrity and in kindness, with high vibration, with wanting to really want to get to the bottom of things and not just to be satisfied with whatever you heard out there in the cosmos about someone that you don't even know. And that's a tough pill to swallow, is when a bunch of people suck in or believe what somebody else has told them and they don't even know the person that's being talked about. That's a good place to start as far as saying, asking yourself some serious questions. Until I talk to that person, and I can, and these people, a lot of the spiritualists, they can read energy. They know who's sincere and who isn't, they kind of already know. But it's easy for people to get confused too. You just have to really take the time to consider that if somebody's taking the time to go after another person, the person you should be worried about is the one that's going after them, not the person that's being targeted. It's usually a red flag. If you see a herd of elephants charging down the hill, you might want to get out of the way and not join the crew. So it's just something to think about. I am grateful to you readers that really did and really do use your abilities and your skills to investigate and really want the truth, that you can't be just paid off, and chances are you will be in the long run, but to think that you're doing it for that motivation. You don't, some of them, they'll do it for the money and not for the motivation to get to the truth, to find out what really happened, what's really going on around me. Because if it could happen to one person that has these gifts, and it could happen to another spiritualist, it might be a good idea for all of us to be on the same team. That's what I'm saying. I think that, we're in this together. We're all oddballs together with these gifts, and I think that we probably should develop that community where it's safer, to where we're not being attacked by people all the time simply because we can do some things that they can't. And they could if they wanted to learn it and really be authentic, but you can't. I don't believe that you can do this or even have these psychic abilities if you're not in tune with. And for me, it really is. I really do pray to Heavenly Father in Jesus Christ. I truly do. And I know from experience that if you pray, that you are entitled to personal revelation for yourself. You don't have to do cards or anything. You can just get on your knees and pray and get answers. Maybe not, as articulate sometimes as the readers can get for you, but but having faith and just letting Him guide me to who to listen to, who not to, who energetically is safe, and sometimes I have to listen to the ones that are not safe, so that I know what's going on. but most of it is me knowing from source the answers to some of the questions that they're saying. Like, they can say something and I'm going to know the rest of the story. I'll just know. Because, and I do have an advantage because I know a lot of these people. Some of them I don't know at all. But you can know somebody energetically, what their personality is like. You can kind of feel it. I don't know. I can do that. I do it without even trying, but and so I don't want to make anybody feel intimidated by that, because I'm not actually looking at somebody that I meet. I'm very, like, when I look at them, I have all the hope in the world they're going to be a delightful person. I expect them to be a delightful person. They might let me down, but I'm still going to give them the benefit of the doubt that they're going to be a sweetheart, and that they don't want to harm me. I'm not going to go out there with a negative attitude and just think, oh, everybody's going to. No, it isn't like that at all. I mean, you could probably understand why I might feel that way now, but I'm really not like that. I'm going to, I'm very delighted to meet people. I'm friendly. I'm not thinking of any conspiracies. I like the truth. I don't like conspiracies. I want to get to the bottom of things. But I did want you to know that I just want you to know the truth about what I was really going through at the time. They were saying I was doing all these racy things, right? I was really going through so much. And nobody was really in a position, because they hadn't gone through what I'd gone through, never put their feet in my shoes, but wanted to paint a picture, because there's something that I had that they wanted to take. And somehow, in their own minds, feel like that was going to be morally okay. How does that work? I don't know. I really don't know. But, God help you, and God, I hope, pray about it. I don't know what else to tell you. There is a God. I promise you there is. And He watches over us. And He loves us. And I know that He loves you. And that, nobody deserves to be targeted like this. None of us. We have a freedom of religion. And even if we didn't, we would still be spiritualists. It's not something that you chose to have usually. It's something that you just have, that God gave you. And yes, people can learn, and some of us are more natural. I don't know what leads us to that so much. But it seems to be true. Paying attention, being willing to feel the Spirit, wanting the truth, wanting to know just the truth, nothing, no frills, just the cold hard facts. But I really do appreciate you readers very, very much. And I feel a lot of gratitude and respect, especially for those that truly want to get to the bottom of things, that are able to empathically put themselves in someone else's place and look at the situation and the horror of the situation and be just completely appalled. If you're that kind of a reader, where you can energetically pull yourself into that situation, where you can empathically, and if you're an empath and you can put yourself in somebody else's shoes, you really know on a deeper level how painful that situation really is. That when your family just wants you to hurry up and die so they can take your money. But that must feel like. They don't care about your family and your kids. They just want to take what's yours. It's a brutal world, isn't it? What are we going to do about it? Do you have any ideas? What are we going to do about it? I don't want it to be a brutal world. I truly don't. I'm so sick of that. I want to get this great big broom and sweep out all the bitter, mean people. It's like, we don't have time for that. We've got too much creating to do, right? What are we going to do this very day to make it better for ourselves and somebody else? I can just say, dear Lord, please bless us this day. Give us peace of heart and mind to be kind and compassionate to others. To do what you want us to do, really want us to do. Be kind to someone today. You were kind to me today. A lot of people were kind today. And I just so appreciate your integrity and your high vibration and your kindness. I really do. And the lessons that you're teaching me. It means a great deal to me. So I will leave you with that. Until next time. Bye.